And now, your weather authority.
All right. Hit us with it.
You don't sound pleased with my forecast.
I mean, I'm not pleased about tomorrow because it's going to be unsafe driving conditions for everyone. But I am excited about the next day into the weekend. So why don't you just go ahead and get into it?
All right. Lori spoke. There it is. We'll go right on into it. Multiple colors on your active alerts graphic. The top shade, which is green, that forest green, this is actually a flood advisory across the northern parts of our area. Blue, that's a wind advisory. And then under that, in purple, out for the marine areas, including the Gulf, is a gale warning. But continuing on throughout the evening, we'll see the remainder of the storms from out west continue pushing towards our area. Speaking of out west, here lies the largest area of severe risk today, which was well to our west. Multiple shades of severe weather risk out there. Not the important thing. The important thing is that we'll see our severe risk increase into tomorrow. With that being said, temperatures tonight will remain warm and are warm right now in the lower 70s across the board, aside from one lucky spot. Loosedale actually down to 69 at the moment, just to the top of your screen. So Loosedale forcing me to include the upper 60s, but everybody else seems to be in the lower 70s. You won't get much cooler than that. Upper 60s, lower 70s, not much of a difference in temperatures tonight. A lot of cloud cover built up over the top of us today. Retain that heating as we go through the overnight hours. Also retaining to heating is this humidity increase we've seen over the past few days. Values here above 80%, some into the 90 percentile. Last week, at the end of last week, we saw humidity values on the Gulf Coast between 20 to 25% with strong winds out of the northwest. That northwesterly wind continued for a couple days alongside that low humidity, and we had a prime condition for fire danger, which is why multiple fires were sparked up here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. But things have changed. Firstly, courtesy of the southeasterly flow, which has returned to the area coming out of the southeast. Now, these are the surface winds, the southeasterly flow. If you were to look at the upper level winds, they aren't coming out of the southeast. Those upper level winds are coming out of the south and west. So that's southwesterly winds aloft coming this way, those surface winds coming this way. We have a lot of convergence over the Mississippi Gulf Coast, a lot of wind shear here, and wind shear, one of the four crucial elements needed for severe weather to develop, alongside lift, instability, and moisture. We'll explain it more in depth in just a moment, how that enhances our severe weather potential into tomorrow. With that being said, wind gusts are continuing this evening. Not too bad. It could be worse out there with severe weather on the horizon, but still notable as multiple areas have seen wind gusts tonight over 30 miles per hour. Your radar will show this. Clean right now, but as I mentioned, you have that southeasterly flow and the southwesterly flow aloft on top of that. They mix together here over the Gulf Coast, and we have classic convergence. Also, we do have wind shear, which by definition, textbook definition, is the changing or turning of winds with height, and that's what you need for severe storms to develop. But as I mentioned, things here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast clear on the radar at the moment. Won't be clear for long. We could see spotty showers develop through the evening. Here's what's happened earlier tonight up to this point. Clouds and radar imagery. High pressure to our south. That will be nullified, void, and pretty much negated by the system out towards the west as we head towards the early morning hours of tomorrow. A lot of rainfall, thunderstorms moving through parts of Louisiana, southern Arkansas, and then eventually into central Mississippi tonight. We saw a tornado warning near Jackson earlier, an hour or so ago. That tornado warning, no word on if there was actually a tornado on the ground, but a spotter seems to think they at least observed one at some point. Thankfully, that tornado warning has since expired. We do have some out towards the west in areas of Texas. Saw that just a couple minutes ago, no more than 5 minutes ago, so that likely is still ongoing. On into tomorrow, our severe weather threat. The bullseye for severe weather tomorrow is right over the state of Mississippi, central Mississippi, and southern Mississippi in this red shade, which is a level 4 out of 5 severe risk. That's a moderate risk. Keep in mind, high risk for severe weather, a level 5 out of 5, are only issued once, twice, maybe 3 times every 5 to 6 years, not for a particular region, but that's countrywide, and that's only if they have the utmost confidence that severe weather will develop on a widespread scale and cause long track damaging tornadoes on a numerous level. But As for tomorrow, here's our setup. The warm front to our north continues to advance that way, leaving the entirety of central Mississippi and southern Mississippi in what we call the open warm sector. Now, what you need to know pertaining to your forecast is that open warm sector by itself would act to enhance the potential for some thunderstorms. But what we also have as that frontal system lifts towards the north, sometimes you would lose a little bit of warmth depending on how far that frontal system advanced to the north and before the backside of the system moved on through, meaning the cold front. But remember that southeasterly flow we were just talking about. That southeasterly flow is going to continue tomorrow, and it's going to funnel a lot of warm, humid, and moist air in, keeping us warm into the daytime hours. But here's the overall pattern of storms as they move through the area tomorrow. Notice it's somewhat of a line of storms setup as it moves through Louisiana. We call that a QLCS, quasi-linear convective system. Now, if it begins to break up eventually into a MCS, which is a mesoscale convective system, that's what we call in the meteorology community those clusters of thunderstorms that aren't quite a long linear line of storms, so it's in the middle ground between a line of storms and a single cell. That's what we could see first, is it break up into an MCS, and then we could see some individual cells like you're going to see here around 7 to 8 a.m. start to populate around Gulfport and southern Mississippi. Now, should we see that, that's when we'll become concerned, because I keep referring to that southeasterly flow. It's very important to our forecast because we do have that southeasterly flow at the surface, and as it comes out of the Gulf, it's going to funnel that warm, humid, and moist air into the Mississippi Gulf Coast and out ahead of these storms, which could be out on their own and single cellular. What that means is you have that moisture funneling in at the surface, no issue strengthening at the surface level and building those thunderstorms, but since that surface flow is south and southeasterly, we have an opposite flow coming out of the upper levels of the atmosphere. So you have that southeasterly flow at the surface, and then you have that southwesterly flow coming on the upper levels of the atmosphere. That's going to cause a lot of wind shear, and you have a lot of that turning of the winds with height. That could further enhance the development of tornado potential into tomorrow. By 3 to 4 p.m., we do see the second round of thunderstorms move on through. It remains a potential. We could see some severe thunderstorms, damaging winds, hail, maybe even a tornado or two here on the southern part of the coast. The other model, it's the same model, but it's a different version of the HRRR model. It's going to show a similar pattern. I don't like seeing all these potentially discrete supercells. The reason for those developing as we take a look at your 7-day forecast is we do have the trough out to the west, and as that goes, what we call negatively tilted, tightens that surface low, and that means our wind shear here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast is also going to intensify, meaning we don't want to see those single cells tomorrow. Hopefully it comes through in a line. That's what we're looking at. Simple terms, you want that linear segment. Don't like damaging winds, but we like them a whole lot more than tornadoes here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and that's something I think you all could probably agree with.
All right, thank you, Trey. We appreciate it. We'll be right back with sports after this.